Hello there, welcome to the video review of Studio Series Leader Class Age of Extinction Optimus Prime. Now this is a figure that I initially was skeptical of getting because I was just a bit iffy on his overall size and just whether or not he would be worth it. Now I decided to pick him up and give him a fair shake, and I have a few thoughts on him. But I will try to be objective about him and be very clear when my own personal opinions come into play with this guy. Now, getting into the figure here, as you can see, a very good representation of Optimus from Age of Extinction. And interestingly, yes, this is very specifically Age of Extinction Optimus, just because his arms aren't in his knight form. As you can see, mostly cast in blue and gray, with the paint being the color breakup of red and silver. He's got lovely detail work here, and just on the shins especially, I think they did a very good job. With some nice sculpted detail that doesn't look flat at all. In the hips, you got the wire work there. Hip skirts, lifting that up, you got all the nice riveting detail there. Even on the back of the thighs, you have these sections which, I mean, they're not painted, but they are sculpted in there, which is nice to see. You got the hip skirts here, which even have the little lights from the truck mode sculpted in, which is pretty nice. Yes, he's got the kibble on the legs. I'll touch on that a bit later. Forearms here, very nice detail work there. Even the fingers are nicely sculpted. The arms even have some cool detail work on the back for once, which you usually don't get to see. Some very nice sculpt work there. And the gauntlets here are interestingly made out of a separate piece of plastic. Nice red paint here. Do find it a bit weird that the red paint splashes over here, considering that's wire work there. It's a bit odd looking to me. Got some nice gold on his abdomen here. Got the red and flames on his chest. The gray is a bit washed out, unfortunately. Really do wish they actually had some silver paint on this, especially for his price tag. We'll get to that. Now the head sculpt is very well done, I will say. I'm not sure how well it comes off, but he has very nice sculpted detail work on the head there. Very sharp. Even the eyes are pretty well defined. And he's got some nice light blue and blue paint on it. The entire head is cast the same gray as the rest of him, which unfortunately I feel like it just doesn't work as well in gray. It's accurate that it should be silver, but I do think that, similar to the original Last Night figure, sometimes just simply casting it in blue and painting silver over it would be better than casting it in gray and painting blue over it. This gray just somewhat washes out the detail work, which is unfortunate because it's really good when you actually get up close to it. Shoulder pads are well detailed. I do think it's unfortunate that the way the joints are set up here, it kind of gets rid of his cool knight armor pattern right here on the forearms. I would have liked to see them at least try to sculpt it into here, but overall he's pretty good. He does have one of the biggest annoyances to me here, but we'll get to it later. Once you look past it, there's some nice smokestack detailing back there. Now articulation wise, the figure does have a ball joint at the head. Does not go to 360, clashing into his collar, but I think that's fine. It does allow him to wiggle waggle pretty expressively, which is pretty good. He does also have sculpt on his neck, which is nice to see. His shoulder pads are on hinges, as well as a separate joint here, as well as a swivel, so they don't really get in the way at all. The arm goes out all the way to 90 degrees. It does rotate full 360. This one, the tightness is fine for me here. Unfortunately on this side, my arm is just extremely loose. I'll get into it later, but it does make it a bit harder to hold the sword. Now he does have a swivel here with the bicep. He does have a double hinge right here, which will get you the full range. Annoyingly, they are indented, so if you want to bend this, you pretty much are either at a straight pose or at that angle immediately, and then once you bend it more, you're a full 90, and then the upper joint pretty much wants to just lock in like that. He does have wrist swivels, which is nice to see, as well as opening hands, although it doesn't really help make him look natural considering this giant bar below the thumb. Makes him look like he's wearing mittens rather than actually having open hands. The wrists also go downwards like this, which some say is good for sword posing. Not really, because his wrist looks broken. I would say that instead of it facing this way, it would have been nice if the joint pulled downwards so that it could properly do a sword pose. I don't know why they didn't do that, considering this joint is completely useless for transformation. It does nothing. Now, he technically has a waist swivel, but it's below the skirt. Right there. And the skirts do move up and down, as well as these. But it's very annoying that the joint is below, because it really doesn't make him look like he actually swivels at all. Because you can turn his waist, but he's still pointing the same direction as what are supposed to be his hips. So yeah, it's very awkward. This also clashes with the backpack of his. These hip skirts do get out of the way, including this one. The way this is set up, these sections do get in the way of the hips. Outwards, it's fine. You get the full range. However, because of how this is set up, the forward range is a little under 90. Basically, very close to 90 degrees, which wouldn't be an issue if his knees were a bit lower, but we'll get to that. Thigh swivel. That looks fine. Does break up the sculpt, unfortunately, but there's not much you can do unless you have separate wires. Which, by the way, nice sculpting underneath the skirts. Usually these are attached to the legs, so you don't get to see this. Now, the knees. The knees do bend to 90 degrees, which is good. However, they are pretty high up on the thighs, so it doesn't really get to look like he's bent his knees much. It's very frustrating to me, because I mean, again, this thing is a leader class. Oh well, that'll just add up to my rant later. Now the feet have pretty good range. They can swivel and have a extremely good rocker. Unfortunately, they do not move up and down, but you can get his toes downwards if you need a cheetah pose. But that is about it for articulation. Now getting into accessories here, he does come with his Sword of Judgment, just cast in gray plastic and painted on red. The handle is a separate piece. I'm not really sure why. I've seen someone mention that it's to replicate the staff, but sculpt's completely wrong for that. And he actually surprisingly doesn't need to have this even come off to put it into his hands, so not really sure why they wasted parts count on that. You can take his hands, open them up, and without even removing it, you can just clip that in. And there you go. Optimus holding a sword. And this, unfortunately, is where the joint on mine fails, which is just lovely to see on a leader class. I wouldn't complain about that if it wasn't for the fact that a lot of these more expensive figures usually have pretty well toleranced. Now, another accessory of his that you expect from a Knight Prime, the shield. It's just cast fully in gray plastic and has a little bit of red paint here. It would have been nice to see them paint on some blue, or maybe even a little bit of flames onto this to break up all this gray, because this red is not really helping make this look less boring. Obviously, underside is all gray too. This, of course, is just on a 5mm port. There you go. The shield does have the extra gimmick of these bits coming off on 5mm ports and a little tab, so that you can plug it on to the second row of ports and have his gun shield mode. It's very cool to see. Haven't really seen that on any of the other official Optimuses. I do think it looks a little bit silly considering this doesn't extend, but you can forgive it for that. Now, he does also come with this sword, which is actually only relevant to Age of Extinction, which is kind of fitting here. This is the Energon blade he uses against the fight with Galvatron. You only get to see it once, but hey, it's pretty cool that they included this accessory. It's cast in blue, but it's fully painted silver. This technically should be orange, so kind of iffy there, but whatever. Would have liked to see this paint go onto the actual sword here, or maybe even the shield, or the gray chest. And you can plug in the sword here, and there you go. Pretty cool. Never really expected to see this, so I think that's a pretty dope addition. Now for the last accessory, he comes with this little adapter piece, which comes relevant on his humongous backpack. You just lift this section up and he has a 5mm port back here. You just plug this in and The sword will just slide right on in, and the shield will plug in right there so that you can store both of them on his back like he does in the movie. Now, granted, from the front it completely blocks the shield and sword, so you don't really get the full effect, and turning it sideways it just looks ridiculous. But hey, storage. Now for some size comparisons, here he is with Studio Series Galvatron. You can see, looks pretty good next to him. Granted, knowing that this is a Voyager class and as a leader concerns me a bit. And here he is with the previous Voyager Last Night Optimus. I can at least confidently say this feels better than this in terms of just feel. I would hope so, considering it's more expensive, but whatever. Now, the size comparisons do lead me into one of my main problems, which, let's just make this section the rant part, I guess. This really does not feel like it's a leader class. I've got to be honest. This is getting into my personal opinion category, of course, so just to be clear, this is my views on it. If you like him, awesome, great for you. Now, for the first obvious complaint here, these are all Voyagers. This to me is just kind of absurd. Now obviously the feel of this thing is very different from him, so I'll give it this. This definitely at least feels way better and more refined than that guy. But I think it's kind of absurd that these two, which are also from Studio Series by the way, are Voyagers and are pretty much the same size. In fact, he's shorter than him. Now, you can say it's complex, it has more parts count and all this. Maybe overall the parts count is higher. But what's not higher is the articulation, the size, the amount of stuff that you get really. Over 90 degrees of bend with the knees. His hips can kick all the way up. I mean, his feet can go up and down. Now this guy has a waist swivel. The hip skirts aren't getting in the way, and his hips can actually kick upwards. Shocker, they came up with a good system and they just didn't use it on this guy. I don't know why, because it would have been extremely useful on him. His knees bend slightly more than him, and the thighs are longer so that it actually has an effect. This is also a partial figure. It has a lower budget than normal Voyagers because they had to put it in an exclusive line. This feels slightly denser, sure, but it doesn't actually feel all that much better. This has better articulation than this despite being $20 cheaper. That's insane to me. Now these two, I think there's a bit of a fundamental issue here. This seems to try to overcomplicate what really wasn't broken, because the main appeal seems to be that, oh, this has less kibble than this. It doesn't. It really doesn't. This has a backpack. Well, this has a giant backpack too. Amazing. This one gets in the way and clashes with his hips. Well, this one is completely free. Oh, hey, the truck bits here are just hanging out, being unsightly on his legs. Okay, sure, that's a problem. I agree. You know what else is a problem? Very obvious smokestacks chilling on his legs, breaking up the silhouette of the legs up here near the knees, reaching the skirts, making it look very clunky here, and then also clashing with the fact that his smokestacks are up here. Now, I will give him this. It was cool seeing this. The fact that there's no junk on the underside of his arms. But this never really bothered me, because it was out of the way and you can barely see it at all. And the arms actually serve a purpose to the transformation. Those sections pretty much just got moved down to his rear end, where they start clashing with the range of articulation, so that didn't really improve anything. People will say, why not just remove the backpack? It's on a mushroom peg, you can just remove it. I'm not gonna do that. It's no longer a transforming figure at that point. Because then, with that argument, just take off all the kibble on this guy and he's also perfect. Even comparing this, like, okay, fine, this is something from 2017. Fine, that's ages ago. This came out only a year or two ago. Now, one of the other things I wanted to mention is the fact that they still make large leaders. He's small. He just is. And yeah, you can say, oh, surely this feels worse. This feels heavier and more dense than this guy. It's just frustrating because you see the team do amazing things with this, and then when given a much larger budget, it almost feels like they squander it. Now, getting into the transformation with this guy. Come here and unplug the backpack. hinge these up, bring that up, and then you just fold out the grill from underneath. And as you can see, there's a little bit more detail work for the smokestacks back here. Now you're going to want to take this abdomen section here and push on it, and that will release the hinges here. Just hinge that back a bit. You can take this whole section, pull it forwards and upwards, and his head will just move upwards like that, and then just fold this down. Take the hip skirts and wheel wells and then just move them up. I do think this is a pretty clever bit of engineering. Take the hip skirts, fold them inside, and then bring this back up, and then you kind of just rest that around there for now. Now you're going to want to take these panels here, flip them open, take the arms, rotate them around, or this port will go into this tab. And then this shoulder pauldron, you just rotate it around. There will be a tab inside the pauldron that goes onto this tab right here, like so. And then you just do the same thing on the other side. Now take this, rotate it around, bring this down, and before you collapse it, you're going to want to take these shoulder bits, bring them upwards, and they will tap together. There. Now you can take, and this whole section will go on a double hinge, and you will rock it back and down, and then you will bring it down, and these two tabs will just plug into the side skirts here. Just give it a good squeeze. There you go. And then you just bring down these sections, which are clear plastic, by the way. This upper section anyway. You bring that down and that'll just rest on there. Like that. Bring this down. And then you just kind of push this back in. Take the skirt, fold it upwards, and it'll tab in there. Rotate at the waist. Now this is where the engineering gets very interesting. Rotate the legs inwards. Fold the toes and heels down, so just to get them out of the way. And at this point you can just tab in the legs to make it easier for yourself. Now the legs here will just untab from here, and then you just accordion it outwards. Fold the roof out, rotate it around, and there you go. And then fold this section in like this. And then you will want to bring it down like that. And then you just you can just tab these in together already, and then you just bring it down on these hinges, and these bits will plug into this slot right here. These do require a bit of a squeeze on my copy. It might vary on other people's copies. And then you will also want to make sure that these are facing forward so that they can slot in properly. Just give it a good push like that, and then you just give it a good squeeze. Now the wheels here will untab the double hinge, and then these gray bits will swing out, and then you'll want to rotate the foot around. And then this will, you just need to accordion it around roughly here in the middle, and then these will swing down, and this will slot into this, and then you pretty much just give that a good old push, and that's tabbed in. And then you bring this little gray piece out, and then you just hinge this up like so, and make sure that this and this plug in there. Do the same on the other side. You can bring these out slightly to pull down the trailer hitches, and then push the trailer hitch together, and then just squeeze this back together. And there you go. Here he is in his pretty awesome Western Star truck mode. And of any complaints I have about the figure, I can't really complain about the truck. I mean, it's a pretty darn good looking truck. It rolls as it's supposed to. All the wheels are pinned, which is very nice to see, I will say that. It's got some nice lovely detail work just running along the whole truck here. And obviously some pretty nice silver paint work on the front here. Silver on the rims. And obviously the nice red flames along the whole truck. And now, given the expensive nature of the figure, it would have been nice to have some silver on the gas tanks at least, or on the smokestacks. It is pretty well detailed back here. I do like that it's nice and covered up. Unfortunately, you can still see the legs, but I appreciate the little attempt to cover them up with these bits. Considering how much of this is broken up into several panels, I will say they did a pretty surprisingly good job with the decals here, or the paintwork. Overall, it's a pretty good truck. Now, of course, what kind of a Transformer wouldn't have weapon storage? you take the sword and shield, you plug them into their adapters, and then you just take the tip of the sword, shove it into here, back of the truck there, plug it in, and there you go, you have sword and shield sticking out of a truck. This sword here has a tab right there, meant to go into here, and there you go. I do miss the Last Night figure having the sword actually stowed under here. Now, there's a comparison. Here's the original Last Night Optimus. And surprisingly, they are pretty much identically sized. Like, the two trucks are almost exactly the same size. I don't know how well it comes off, but the original figure is a shinier blue. It has this nice metallic swirl and speckle to it that I think looks much better. Honestly, it's a more vibrant and just very nice metallic blue that I think this figure is missing. This figure has a swirly blue. It almost feels like they tried to make it metallic, but it just kind of looks flat. And it's a bit too deep of a blue. I really would have loved to see this blue return. I think it really would have made him pop a lot more. Now, to close out the video, do I recommend this? Kind of. It very strongly depends on if you are willing to pay $55 for essentially just a slightly heavier, ever so slightly more complicated Voyager. I personally wouldn't pay $55, and in fact, I didn't. I managed to get this on sale for the price of a Voyager, and I think at that price, it's a darn good figure. I think, frankly, you're getting about as much value as a Voyager out of this. I mean, if you really want a Last Night Optimus, this is a pretty good figure, but the Yolo Park one, I think, is what you should get if you want a just really good-looking Optimus. If you want a transforming Optimus, this is good. I like it. But I do think that I wouldn't recommend it at $55. Articulation is, quite frankly, kind of disappointing. The upper half is fine. Is great. The lower half, however, is really disappointing for me. His overall just waist, hips, and knees are almost useless feeling. They really just lack in comparison to even Voyagers, which we've been getting some really good articulation out of Voyagers in both Studio Series and Legacy/Age of the Primes. This is kind of a mixed figure with me. It's not bad, obviously. It's not a trash figure at all. I'm not gonna call it trash. But yeah, that's about it. Please feel free to comment below on why you think maybe you agree or disagree with me. I openly encourage discussion. Please feel free to subscribe, as well as give me a follow on Instagram, where I am taking photos of figures that I might review or just feel like taking pictures of for fun. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.